You know, there's a lot of sermons out there if you go and do a search on faith, and people coming to all different kinds of conclusions. And if you pray for something, a big one is you pray for something and it doesn't happen, well, you lack faith. All these different things that people are teaching. This is from a slightly different viewpoint than that. I want to talk about the faith that we all individually have. Christians are told, and correctly so, that without faith it's impossible to please God. So, let's take a look at that verse. Hebrews 11, verse 6. But without faith it is impossible to please him, for he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Well, let me interject one thing on this verse. It talks about who diligently seek him. What does that mean? Oh, if you got time. Oh, you might not want to do this, Lord. We got to be looking for him. We got to believe that he can answer the prayer, believe that he can protect us. Whatever it is we're asking for, it requires belief, and to have belief, you got to have faith. So they are tied together. Now, Jesus was asked a really important question, and it shows us that this is rare. What am I talking about? It's partway into Luke chapter 18, verse 8. It says, "Nevertheless, when the Son of Man comes, will he really find faith on earth?" Well, it's a statement that he made, but it's a real question, and it's a big one. It doesn't say, will he find people that know that he's God's son? You know, demons know that. The question was, will he really find faith on earth? I'm not talking about fake faith or halfway faith. Real faith. Like the song we just got done singing about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You think that took a little bit of faith? Oh, King, even if you kill us, we still won't bow down and worship you. Our God can protect us, but even if he doesn't, we still won't do it. Why? Because they knew that, number one, it would be a sin and they can lose their salvation, eternal life. But number two, that no matter what the king did to them, God can resurrect them. God can bring them back to life. Now, very few people want to volunteer. Now, there are some, but very few want to volunteer to die. Especially if you're not in pain or suffering, or, I understand you're laying there on your deathbed and you might want to just get it over with. But there's not a whole lot of people go to bed at night and say, I hope I don't wake up tomorrow morning. In the Bible, there's a parable about 10 virgins. Going to look at it in a second here. But it shows, they represent the bride that Jesus is returning for. A couple things in this that we're going to read, but half of them, the message is half of them don't make the first resurrection. They're all brides, they're all eligible, they all could be there, but half of them fail the test. So let's go back and let's look at what the verse says. Matthew 25, verse 1, it says, "Then the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps, and while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept." All of them. Not just half, all of them slumbered and slept. In other words, they didn't think he was coming that night. If they knew he was coming, they would have been ready. Verse 6, and at midnight a cry was heard, behold, the bridegroom is coming out to meet him. Or go out to meet him. Verse 7, then all those virgins rose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. Now, and there's something to it. I'm not trying to poo-poo it, but, when I hear others talk about this, it's always about, well, see, they didn't have God's Holy Spirit. They didn't, and the oil can represent that, yes. But the point is, in this parable, I think, is to say, wake up, don't be stupid, be ready like it's tonight. Half of them didn't believe it. They didn't have faith. They didn't have faith to do what it took to be ready so that when he returns, he's going to stop at their house and get them. Let's go on verse 9. It says, but the wise answered, saying, no, lest there should not be enough for us and you, but go rather to those who sell and buy for yourself. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in to him in the wedding, and the door was shut. So see, the half that weren't ready, that were stupid, they wanted the oil, so they went out to buy some, but they missed their opportunity. And by the time they got themselves ready, it was too late. Verse 11, afterward the other virgins came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, assuredly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day or the hour in which the Son of Man is coming. So what he's saying here is, if you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do, if you don't have the faith of what I'm telling you is going to happen, I don't even know who you are. So prepare, get ready, and show up already. The word faith means to trust, to believe, to rely upon. Let's take it to a look at how Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 defines faith. It says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. For by it the elders obtained a good testimony. By faith we understand that the words were framed by the word of God, so that the things which are seen were not made of things which are visible. Now, some people, it's just a lot of fluff. What's it talking about here? But it really does take, when you think about this, it really does take faith to believe that God created the world out of nothing. People will say, wow, where did you get the ability to build this house? Or where did you get the ability to do this, that, whatever it is? And sometimes that can be a really difficult thing that somebody does. You say, people marvel at like doctors, they save somebody's life. Well, it's one thing to take something that's already there, but how about you come up with your own dirt? You breathe into it, you create the human being, and you create the life. What takes greater faith? What takes that somebody could actually do that? Because there's so many people in the world, the majority of people that call themselves Christians, they do a mixture of evolution. They mix in evolution. It's like, well, there's science out there, and they tell us that, all of these things, you start out with slime on a rock somewhere, and single-celled amoebas, and they got all of these scientific explanations. How about, where did you come up with the rock? Where'd you come up with the slime? And that's not how it happened, by the way. But they can't believe that. So they got all of these missing links and all of these conclusions, and that requires a lot of faith to believe that gobbledygook garbage. But they don't believe what it actually says. God spoke it, it happened, and it was good. We got to do a mixture. I had a very good friend. He wasn't really a religious guy because he didn't do anything very little of what God said to do or don't do. But he did this. He was the first guy that I really started thinking about, what is this? He did this hybrid evolution. And, oh yeah, God's the one that created the heavens and the earth, but it took millions and billions and hundreds of billions of years to do it. No, that's not what it says. 6 days of work and 1 day of rest. That's all it took them. And there's been Sabbath-keeping groups that teach different, hybridized versions of all of that. How about he said it and it was good? How about he said it and that's how it happened? Why can't they believe that? I find it really hard. And some of them believe it with such kind of a fervor that some of them might be squirming a little bit right now when I'm talking about this, because they've got their very technical definitions and they form them, bohu and tohu. And so out of that, we've got could be millions of years. Who knows? Well, that's not what it says. But it really takes faith to believe it. It's not real science. They have no proof. In fact, there's a whole lot of proof against it. I got brainwashed when I was a kid and went to the government training institutes that we call public school. That's what they taught me, and I believed it for a while. But God has the power to command it to happen out of nothing. And he says that's how he did it. So I don't need to be smarter than him and reform his words. Today, people put their faith in all kinds of things. They really do. They believe religiously, said that word on purpose, in all kinds of things. They have a lot of faith. Some people trust God. Others trust their money. Others, their friends. And I'm not saying you can't have these other things, that somehow it's a sin. But when you trust in those things instead of God, it becomes a sin. Violates the first commandment. I shall have no other gods before me. You trust in your money more than you trust in God, you've made money your God. And everything after that follows in the same way. Some, their friends are their God. They will do anything not to lose friends. Some, it's their self. That's who they trust. Themselves, not God. Some trust politicians. Some trust some power that they might have. Others trust science. The majority of people trust the high priest of modern medicine. Doctors, MDs, more drugs. Astrology. There's people, we all know them, that won't get out of bed without reading their horoscope to see if they should stay in bed or get up and face the world. Others, it's the cult and all the cult practices. The Bible warns us to be faithful with our faith. Let's take a look here. Proverbs 28:26. He who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but whoever walks wisely will be delivered. What's that saying? That you got to just ignore anything you know, anything that you've seen? No. But if you trust in your own heart, it says our hearts are deceitful above all things. You can talk yourself into anything. Yeah, trust your instincts. Trust the things that you can know, see, feel, touch. But don't ignore or don't believe what God says. And if there's not enough, if you don't haven't examined the subject deeply enough to know, to prove this for yourself, it's the most important thing that we can do, is prove, is there really a God out there, or is it all a big lie? Because if it's a big lie, y'all are wasting your time today. Go out and have some fun. Go do something. Go live like the world. What's this? A party like it's 19 whatever the year is, they say. Because it doesn't matter. But if there is a God, and if he's given us a message, and the Bible is his message to us, then that's the most important thing. Think about it. The way the world does it is we'll put our kids and we'll train them for most of them 13 years, K through 12, right? And then if you really want to be an expert, you go for another 2, another 4. And then if you want people to genuflect, because you got all these letters after your name, you might go for another 4, whatever it is, depending on what you're shooting for. And that's what they want to trust in. All of that means nothing if there's really a God, because suddenly that's the most important thing. That doesn't mean you can't have a skill or study and learn something. But if that's your God and not the God that created the world, you're wasting your time. Let's take a look, Exodus chapter 20, verse 3. You shall have no other gods before me. Why do you think he led with that? It was the first thing out of his mouth. When I'm talking about this and tying it in with faith. Because if we don't really believe that, if you don't have faith to actually understand that he means what he says here, you can't keep any of the other 9. They're all tied together. Went through that a couple weeks ago. Jeremiah 7, verse 4. Do not trust in these lying words saying, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord are these. Think about when this was written. People were talking about and using the temple as proof for their statements. This God that we worship, this God, look at this building, look at this. And then they were going on, and at this time they were evil. They were worshiping in their own eyes this God that created everything, but they weren't doing it and acting like the way he said. The temple of the Lord, the temple. He actually says, do not trust in these lying words. So what was he talking about here? Just because there's some man-made monument, man-made thing, and we've got this organization going on, that doesn't prove that you're right. You know, if it does, then everybody should go on down and join the Catholic Church. Talk about the monuments and the wealth and the, kings all over the world come and genuflect and get down on their knees and kiss his ring. Name me a president. Well, I'm sure there were some if you go back far enough, but I bet you got to go back more than 75 years when travel was a little bit more difficult. Name me a president from this country that didn't go and kneel before the Pope and kiss his ring. They used that as a proof that, the lie that Peter was a Catholic. He was the first Catholic. Rewrite history. Last night after I got home from Bible study, they had something on TV about some movie that they're coming out with. And it was St. Patrick, about St. Patrick's Day, and they took a real Irishman to this actor to play St. Patrick, and how he was this Catholic saint. He wasn't Catholic, and he didn't keep Sunday. Most Sabbath keepers don't know that. But back to this. We're instructed where our faith and our trust, where it should be. Proverbs, let's see, do I have it up there? No, so let me, Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. So, again, do we say, well, I've proved it for myself? So you trust in what you think, or do you trust in what God says? Why is this important? Because as he reveals things to you, as he shows you more and more, if you don't trust in him, you ain't going to do it. You say, well, that's impossible. Really? Is it? How many people think so many things are impossible? Verse 6, in all your ways acknowledge him. That means do it in everything that we do. No compromising, no excuses, no but about it. And he shall direct your paths. So he's going to lead us. He's going to show us. He's going to protect us and guide us and deliver us. Verse 7, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. And here's the whole purpose of the whole thing. Depart from evil. Get away from it. The world's way is Satan's way. How about we just start believing what God says? I don't care what the subject is. Could be anything. How you dress. What you eat. What you do. What type of a job do you take? How do you raise your children? Doesn't matter what the subject is. How many people say, well, I couldn't do that. I couldn't. They don't have it because they don't have enough faith. They don't even have enough faith to step out and try it. And it's about time that we realize that there's only one source of truth. In Psalms 119, 160, this shows us a couple things here, but I'm going to read it first. The entirety of your word is truth, and every one of your righteous judgments endures forever. All of his word is truth. Every word of it goes back to what Jesus said about not one jot or one tittle will pass. Oh yeah, but then we got all the interpretations about, well, he fulfilled it, so these things have all passed. And how, well, that's part of the old covenant, or that's in the Old Testament. Oh, really, what does it say here? Every one of your righteous judgments endures how long? Forever. So for all of the yeah, buts, and the excuses, and well, we don't do that anymore, and well, that's the old covenant, not the new covenant. They don't even understand the difference between the old and the new covenant, but it sounds good. It's a manufactured excuse. Not even his judgments are outdated, no longer valid, no longer should be followed. Statutes, judgments, commandments, and precepts. All of it. It only endures until he dies and is resurrected, right? And then it's a free-for-all. I don't get it. John 17:17. Sanctify them by your truth. Your word is truth. Which part of the word? How many people pick the Bible apart and ignore vast sections of it? We all need to be zealots and nutcases about his word. What part of it's a mistake? Somebody that's actually telling you this, that you don't have to do it. I can't do it because I took it out of the middle of my Bible. But sometime if it's still there, that uninspired page is in almost every Bible. It's right in the middle of what we call the Old Testament and the New Testament. Somehow it's like it separates it. But it's not inspired. It's something that the publishers put in there, and it says New Testament. When somebody's telling you that's all done away with, just open your Bible to that page in front of them, grab hold of it, and rip it out and say, okay, what else should we tear out of here? They probably look at you like, oh, don't let them see what the page is. You actually just let them think you just flipped it open and rip it out and say, what else should I rip out of here that doesn't mean anything anymore? Probably won't change, but it's got to be worth some shock and awe a little bit. Say, well, that's what you're doing with God's word. It endures forever. Every single part of it. Nothing passes away. Not even a letter, much less a whole law, much less a whole section. Not even a part of a letter. The Bible warns us, and here's a big one because there's so many of them out there, warns us not to trust in false teachers. Matthew 7:15. Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes from the thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Even so, every good tree bears good fruit, but a bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a bad tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Therefore, by their fruits you will know them. Examine them, look at them. Now remember, they don't walk in wearing a shirt or a sign on them saying, false prophet, ravenous wolves. There's one lady, she's a self-appointed prophetess, calls herself a minister. And I come downstairs this morning to get something to eat before I get started on this, and Mary's all fired up. She's already sent off all kinds of messages and posts. She said, I didn't put it on her Facebook, I just put it on mine. But I sent her the verses privately. She was telling people that basically, stay home. You don't have to go and worship God. You just stay home. And think of it, somebody that's, especially you got a lot of kids and it's hard to get them all ready. And, it's a whole lot easier just put some clothes on, grab your car keys, and walk out the door. Well, it's kind of convenient for her. Stay home and read her Facebook nonsense about how she's some kind of prophet and gives. So Mary sends her verses like, and Jesus went to the synagogue on the Sabbath as was his custom. And she answers her back. She says, well, yeah, that was Jesus' custom, but not ours. Just because he did it, and I'm thinking all kinds of things. Paul says, imitate me as I imitate Christ. But anyhow, she had gone back and forth with her half the morning. She read me some of the things she sent her. And, well, it's a waste of time. Whereas for somebody to think she's a prophetess of some kind and has no place for anybody to come fellowship, I said, I bet you her tune would change if there was some place she had some big house where she could invite people to come and grovel at her feet or something. But all kinds of false teachings. Internet's a two-edged sword. It's a blessing and a curse. If you do a search, you can find anything out there to justify what you're doing, including violating the fourth commandment. Any of God's instructions. There's somebody out there teaching that you don't have to do that. Search enough and you'll find it. Let's take a look at this next one here. 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 21. Test all things. Hold fast what is good. Abstain from every form of evil. It's like, even if it's close to the edge, kind of, well, technically, abstain from it. What's the purpose? What's the benefit? It's not worth it. Look at what Jesus said he was going to use Paul for. A lot of people don't like Paul. A lot of people don't like him because they don't understand him. But Acts 26:16, it says, "But rise and stand on your feet, for I have appeared to you for this purpose, to make you a minister and a witness for both of the things which you have seen and the things which I will yet reveal to you." So he tells them, he says, I'm going to be showing you some things. Get up on your feet, and I got a job for you to do. Verse 17, "I will deliver you from the Jewish people as well as from the Gentiles, to whom I now send you, to open their eyes in order to turn them from darkness to light." In other words, they're blind, they're lost, they don't understand. "And from the power of Satan to God." And they're blind and don't understand because Satan's got them deceived. "That they may receive forgiveness of sins and an inheritance among those who are sanctified by faith in me." So how are you sanctified? Faith. Well, the Sunday world is right. It's all by faith, but they forget about things like James, where it says, I'll show you my faith by my works. If you have faith, then you're doing things. It's not just like sitting on your butt, have a book in your lap, you read it and you say, oh yeah, I believe that, and nothing changes. Which one of the prophets that had the faith to actually go out and do it, and most of them were murdered and killed because of it? So, oh yeah, I believe you, Lord, but I can't do that. And some of them, that was the initial Moses, but I excuses. But when God said, do it, they all got up and did it. In fact, some of them he had to say, don't be afraid. Because he would send them out there and he'd say, turn from your evil ways, quit your sinning, quit your, repent. Don't believe in these false, evil ways of doing it. And people would get really ticked off. The Bible tells us we're healed by faith. In James chapter 5, verse 15, says, and the prayer of faith will save the sick. So faith plays a part in this. It says, if one of you is sick, call for the elders, and the breaker went. I think we're still streaming on the internet. It just got dark, that's all. But we're still okay. If she's got too much plugged in back there, it's just going to pop again. For by grace, no, I want to back up to James. James 5:15. And the prayer of faith will save the sick, and the Lord will raise him up. And if he has committed sins, he will be forgiven. Well, what if you don't have faith? Well, you're not going to be forgiven. You're not going to be healed. It requires faith. Ephesians 2:8 says, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. So it's not because of something that we do, it's because of faith. And that's why I said, is there real faith out there? Do we have it individually? Oh, well, it's too much plugged in back there. we're rewarded according to our faith. Let's see. Hebrews 11, verse 6. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Without this faith, it's impossible to please God. It's impossible to be doing what we're supposed to be doing if we don't believe it ourselves. And if you don't believe it yourself, you're not going to have the courage, the belief, the ability to do the things that God says, because sometimes it goes against what the world teaches. Sometimes it goes against our own experiences. That's why we can't trust our heart, but we're supposed to trust what God says. We've all got times of doubt. Peter doubted when Jesus invited him to walk on the water. Now, I walked on water one time. It was about 40 miles an hour behind the boat. And I only got maybe 30, 40 yards before I couldn't do it no more. But it was really fun while it lasted. But that's not what was happening here. He was actually going out and walking on the water. We all know the story. What caused him to not be? He's doing it. What caused him not to be able to continue? Because what he was saying, this is impossible. This can't be happening. This can't. But in Matthew chapter 14, verse 31, it says, and immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him and said to him, O you of little faith, why did you doubt? If he would have continued to have the faith and saw what was going on and saying, wow, with Christ all things are possible, he could have continued to do it. But he let science tell him and prove to him. I said once, we used to live on a lake in Wisconsin several years, so I walked on water, but it had to be about 6 inches thick before I'd go out there and walk on it. You know, it was frozen. And Andrew, used to ice skate on the water too. Had hockey skates and regular ice skates and but it had to be frozen. I'm talking about in the middle of summer, you're going to get wet, just go out there and walk on it somehow and try it. That's what Peter was doing, and then his faith made his belief weak, and he started to sink. Why is that in there? So why include a verse like this? For us to know that if we truly do have faith, it might look impossible. It might look like it can't be. Make sure that God said to do it first, okay? It's not just something we dreamed up in our own heads. But if he said to do it, it's not impossible. That if we have enough faith, just step out and do it. The disciples doubted Jesus was resurrected even when he was there in front of them, even when they could see him. Let's take a look what it says here, Luke 24:36. Now as they said these things, Jesus himself stood in the midst of them and said to them, peace to you. But they were terrified and frightened. So they're all gathered together, and here comes, bang, right in the middle of them, here's Jesus. And they're terrified. They're scared to death. And suppose that they had seen a spirit. Why? Because it's impossible for this to be him. He's dead. We all saw it. We all know. Everybody saw him die. But there he is. Can't be him. It's got to be some kind of a spirit, a ghost, whatever. A demon, whatever. But can't be him. And he said, verse 38, and he said to them, why are you troubled? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? Behold, my hands and my feet. that it is I myself. Handle me and see, for a spirit does not have flesh and bones, as you see that I have. When he had said this, he showed them his hands and his feet. But while they still did not believe, he says, hey, it's me. See? They see it. They handled them. They touched it. They still didn't believe it. Why? Because they had doubts. Because this is impossible. Can't be. They still did not believe for joy and marveled. He said to them, have you any food here? So they gave him a piece of a boiled fish and some honeycomb, and he took it and ate in their presence. Why did he do this? Was he hungry? No. He's trying to show them it's real. It's me. I've returned from the dead. Spirits, demons, they don't eat. It's proof that he did what he... Now, they didn't understand. Later, he opens the scriptures and he shows them that they should have known this was happening, but they didn't. Let's take a look at John chapter 20, verse 24. Talk about Thomas. It says, now Thomas, called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. The other disciple therefore said to him, we have seen the Lord. So when he said to them, unless I see his hands, in his hands, the print of the nails, and put my finger into the print of the nails, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe. So they're telling him, he was here. We all saw it. It was him. He says, I don't believe it. It's one of the 12. Verse 26. And after 8 days, now this got me going, I don't have the answer for this, but I said, why 8 days? There's got to be something specific about this. Got to go back in the law, see what it taught. First thing popped in my head is, well, there's several things on the 8th day, then, the sanctification process for the tabernacle. But it's important because it says after 8 days. So 8 days later, he appears again. After 8 days, his disciples were again inside, and Thomas with them. Jesus came, the doors being shut, and stood in the midst and said, peace to you. And he said to Thomas, reach your finger here and look at my hands, and reach your hand here and put it into my side. Do not be unbelieving, but believing. And Thomas answered and said to him, my Lord and my God. Jesus said to him, Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. Well, first of all, he knew exactly what Thomas was saying. Unless I can see him and feel him and touch him, I ain't going to believe it. What's the first thing he says to Thomas? Get on over here. So then he believes, just like he says he would. But he says, blessed are those that haven't seen and still believe. Why? Because if you see it, it's easier to believe. Reading it and having the faith and knowing it. And trusting, because you trust God, you have that relationship. You've already proven things. That he is who he says. And you believe that he means what he says and we should do it. So, summarize this a little bit. What can we do? First thing, ask God for faith. Ask him to give it to you, to show you. It's different for every single one of us, what we've got to do, what we've got to experience, what we've got to know, so that we can trust him and believe him. Matthew 7:7 says, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. I want to propose something that faith is one of them. If you don't have enough faith to actually just do what he says, because you think you can't do that, ask him for the faith. Ask him to show you how. Ask him to intervene in your life. Number 2, prove what you believe. 1 Thessalonians 5:21 says, test all things, hold fast to what is good. Prove it. How do you prove it? You test it. You step out on faith. Where do you start? Maybe you need to ask him for direction. The easiest way is start on something little and then gain confidence as you go. The fastest way is something you think can't be done. Just put him to the test. Do it. And if he can do this impossible thing, then the rest is downhill and easy from there. Some of us can go out and take on the big thing. Some of us can't. Some start in the middle. But start and ask him where you should start. Number 3, study what the Bible teaches about faith, because it's a huge subject. You could start with just get a Strong's out, and every time faith is in there, read some verses before and after. If you see it's an ongoing something, start at the beginning of where the subject comes up and read till it concludes. That's a good start. Read the examples of faith described in Hebrews 11. It's called the faith chapter, but it references things. Go back to the original source of what it's referencing and read the whole thing that surrounds that. Read the original accounts in the Old Testament, learn and grow. See how these things played out. Number 4, pray, study, meditate, and fast. Quit worrying about the shortcuts. Just do it. Number 5, how about living by faith? If we can actually start living by faith, we're going to see miracles. Every single one of us will see miracles happen in our lives. Matthew 17:20, so Jesus said to them, because of your unbelief, for surely I say to you, if you will have faith as a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you. Now, was he really saying this so that we should go up into the edge of Maryville, look at the mountains and say, I want you to move over here, and I want you to move over here, so that it's not the purpose of this verse. The purpose of it is if we have just a little bit of faith, like a mustard seed. Years ago, 25 plus years ago, I bought Mary a necklace, and it had a mustard seed inside of it. And I couldn't read it then because it was so small, but etched in there was this verse about the mustard seed, how tiny it is, and then went back and studied a little bit and saw how great of a plant it grows to be from this little tiny seed. And he says, that's what the faith has to be. Just give me a little bit and see what happens. Next one is something that most people will avoid like the plague. Fight for your faith. You got to fight, not necessarily with your fist, but you got to fight against Satan and against the world to keep your faith, because he's trying to take it away. Jude 3, beloved, while I was very diligent to write you concerning our common salvation, I found it necessary to write you exhorting you to contend earnestly for the faith which was once for all delivered to the saints. Now, there was a big Sabbath-keeping denomination, and they twisted this a little bit to mean, the things that we've taught you, that's, No, the things that God says. That's what we earnestly contend for. To believe it, to know it, to not ignore it, to actually do it. And last, 7, never give up. Going to end this today with this song, kid's song about never giving up. 2 Timothy 4:7 says, I have fought the good fight. It's Paul at the very end of his life. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give me on that day, and not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearing. Life is a fight. I don't care who you are or what you experience, it is a fight. And Satan wants to just wear us down. In all our life, that's what the whole thing is about, wearing us down, getting us just to give up, to compromise. Believe and be like the Bereans. They proved everything. They were open, they listened, but when they heard something, they went to check it out to see if it was true or see if it was a lie. Hold on faithfully to the truth. People say, well, what's the truth? Thy word is truth. In other words, if God said it, if it's in the Bible, it's the truth. It's not a lie. It's not a trap. Help others by building an atmosphere of faith in God's family. Start with yours. Start with your circle of influence, your friends, your family, your relatives, whatever, and go out from there. Because when Jesus returns, will he really find faith on the earth? Well, he knows that he's going to find some, but it's a small remnant. I was stupid a long time ago. I didn't know what a remnant is. And the best way I found out was it's really one of the terms you use in sewing. What's a remnant? It's the leftovers. It's small. It's just a little bit. He's going to find some faith, and it's going to be real. But the vast majority don't have it. Don't possess it. They might know who he is, but again, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. I never knew you. They didn't have the faith to believe that he meant what he said and that they could actually do it and accomplish it. So don't give up. Let me get that song.